We are the Lab Doctors. I'm Amanda.
I'm Dorothy.
And I'm Zhao Yong.
We are biomedical researchers who realized we still have a lot to learn about science.
So why not join us on this quest?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lab Doctors. So today we'll be talking about personality traits and Alzheimer's. So the reason we're talking about this is because of an article on Science Daily, which is where we get most of our topics because it's actually very interesting. So this is actually courtesy of Zhao Yong, but I will summarize what this paper found.
Woo!
Okay, so anyway, this paper, they looked at the association between two personality traits, specifically conscientiousness and neuroticism, and the risk of dementia. So it's actually a longitudinal study, which is a type of study where they follow subjects over a long period of time, and then they just observe things about these people.
Yeah.
It's actually a very thorough analysis. So they took people's personality traits and correlated that with their predisposition, so likelihood of developing Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so two of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease is amyloid and tau deposit. So these proteins are responsible for the plaques and tangles that characterize Alzheimer's disease. Okay, so Alzheimer's is a condition where your mental state deteriorates, usually with age. Okay, so what this team found was that participants who scored higher in neuroticism and lower in conscientiousness were more likely to have these proteins that predispose you to Alzheimer's. Okay, so basically the findings suggest that personality can help protect against Alzheimer's and other neurological diseases by delaying or preventing the emergence of these bad proteins that cause you to get dementia or other mental conditions. So for those people who are strong in conscientiousness and low in neuroticism. Okay, so TLDR, if you are conscientious and not neurotic, you're less likely to develop Alzheimer's.
Yeah, so speaking about personality tests, how legit do y'all think these things can be used, as a diagnostic marker for disease conditions? Because, sometimes I feel like personality tests are just very similar to co-reading and can actually just be like, pseudoscientific, like horoscopes and stuff like that. So I don't know how legit personality tests are.
Yeah, so actually in our own chat group, right, we sent a short version and a long version.
Yeah.
And I just did it like back to back, the short one first and the long one first, and I got varying results. What someone told me after that was you need to do the test like defining who you are at which setting. Like, because sometimes if I look at a question, I'll be like, do you easily make friends? Then I'll be like, in the office, no, but like in orientation camp, yes.
Right.
So it's like, I'm a very different person, and I think that is what changes my results. So you need to define yourself in that setting when you do a test, and when you do all the tests, I guess, if you want to compare different tests. So I feel it might make it a bit more coherent, hopefully, but I also won't know like how accurate personality tests.
I think it's about how honest you are with yourself. The thing about personality tests is it's a self-assessment. So, I mean, sometimes they ask you, are you kind? And then you want to be kind and then you put, yes, I am very kind, that kind of thing. So it's how honest you are with yourself. And I guess on what Dorothy said, I would just choose the thing that I am most of the time. So if I'm friendly most of the time, that's what I'll choose. Because like you said, it changes from time to time, which is the weakness of a lot of personality tests. So I always try to think about it in terms of what is my baseline or what is my usual, and then I will do personality tests that way. So I guess for me, I would say I'm quite perceptive of myself. So I can do the same personality test again and again and generally get similar results, but maybe different scales. But I could be lying to myself as well because maybe
like if you're consistent, you might just be consistent in the lie.
Yes, exactly. So earlier this year, I had an existential crisis about whether or not I'm an extrovert or an introvert. Which is the whole consistent about the lie. So all my life, I thought I was an extrovert. Until Zhao Yong blew my mind telling me that, I think you're an introvert. And I went on this journey of self-discovery of whether I'm an introvert or whether I'm an extrovert. And I read a lot of books about what those things even are. So the whole long story short of this is you can be consistent with the lie as well. So again, personality test, as much as you try to be honest with yourself and consistent about baselines and the situation you're in, there's still self-reporting, which is not the most accurate.
Right. So sometimes I feel like when they give you your personality results, they give you like general enough comments.
Yeah, like horoscopes.
Yeah, like horoscopes, exactly. So I looked this up, and actually, so psychologists in general, they say that the issue with personality tests stems from two main reasons. So one of them is that a person's type. So in this case, they are particularly talking about the widely known MBTI or Myers-Briggs type indicator, you know, the INFJ, ENFP nonsense.
Yep, the 16O nonsense. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's no, because like, okay, so they categorize people according to these labels, and then they use these labels to suggest what is, you know, the best career for you and like romantic pairings and stuff like that, and like what would work. But because, you know, a person can vary according to a continuum, like a personality isn't particularly set, like if I'm an introvert, I'm definitely an introvert all the time, which was something that we talked about, right? Like depending on what setting, you adjust accordingly. So it's just that, you know, some people adjust easier, some people adjust less. So it's very hard to fix someone to a certain personality label. Yeah, and then because of the whole romantic pairings things, I was just like, yeah, this just sounds like horoscope. Yeah, so they say that for particularly this quiz, there's an issue because people's types can change from day to day. So the results are wildly not reproducible.
Yeah.
And then the next one is results are also highly dependent on how questions are worded, which I think is also something that Dorothy mentioned, like, are you, what's that? Are you an introvert or are you friendly? Like, yeah, but in what setting, you know? Friendly in what setting? So it really depends. However, most professionals agree that the main personality model, which was used in this Alzheimer's disease study, called the Big Five personality trait or the 5-factor model, is actually the most scientifically proven
Or scientifically
personality
accepted.
quiz. Yeah, scientifically accepted and proven, because they have empirically shown that the results are reproducible and that the questions are highly peer reviewed. So in general, this model doesn't really separate into types, because I mean, I think all three of us did this quiz, right? We see that, as in, they don't necessarily tell you are an introvert or an extrovert, but they tell you, like, I mean, for me in particular, I'm like 90% introvert kind of thing.
Yeah.
So on that spectrum, where do you lie? And then where's the average? And so that's why it is more scientific in that sense. Yeah.
So what is the Big Five model?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Big Five, generally it's acronymed as OCEAN. So openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So if you remember from the Alzheimer's paper, they looked at only conscientiousness and neuroticism. But I think it's worth pointing out what are the other three as well. So I'll just give you a one-liner on what all these are. So openness describes the tendency to think in abstract or complex ways. They say generally people who are open are more creative and not as rigid. But I mean, this is obviously an overgeneralization and it can apply to a lot of other things. So this applies to all of the 5 personality traits. Conscientiousness is linked to self-discipline and control in order to pursue your goals. Extroversion describes a person's inclination to seek stimulation from the outside world, which is generalized to social settings, but it's not always socially.
Right.
Okay, so agreeableness describes a person's tendency to put others' needs ahead of their own and the tendency to cooperate rather than compete. Okay, and finally, neuroticism describes a person's tendency to experience negative emotions, including fear, sadness, anxiety, guilt, and shame. Okay, so these are the 5 personality traits.
You know, personally, I kind of hate that they label, like, you know, fear, sadness, anxiety, guilt, and shame as negative emotions. They are not negative. They are just emotions that signal a certain problem.
So what's your score? What's our score? So you go first.
My conscientiousness is like 21 and my neuroticism is at 98. So this is out of 100.
This is like bad, right? Right, if I remember.
Yeah, so it's like I'm definitely getting
Amanda?
Okay, so I did both tests. I guess I'll go with the detailed one. So my conscientiousness is 83%. So, you know, on the better scale there. But are you ready? My neuroticism is 73%. So it's it's pretty up there as well. But actually,
Okay.
for all of mine, it's above 70%. So I don't know how I feel, including extroversion. Apparently, it's 71%.
Well,
You can cut this out. But
clearly someone is still delusional. But
oh my goodness.
Light your way through this test, Amanda.
I did the short one and I got 75%. So I mean, you tell me.
I guess
Am I
you're-
lying?
Yeah,
I
you're
think
very
you
consistent.
are just consistent in your life.
Okay, because this is the person that I truly believe I am, which oh my
Sure,
goodness.
sure.
Okay,
Whatever
anyway,
makes you
we
happy,
won't get
Amanda.
into it.
we
Extroversion
won't
can
get
be
to it.
another topic on
Yeah.
its own because
Yes.
I've gone down that rabbit hole. And
Yeah.
okay, so anyway, Dorothy.
I would like to say I'm pretty average for both. I'm like, for conscientiousness, I am 58%, and for neuroticism, I am 50%.
Yeah, so that's, I think, above average. As in, to the number of people that actually take the test, it's like above average for both. So I think you're quite safe. So yeah, I'm getting Alzheimer's, which is just, another thing.
so
that's
that's
like
the
great to
problem. So
know.
that's one of the things about this
But-
about this whole study is how does this information affect your mental state? Because
Yeah.
like Zhao Yong said, once he saw it, he in his mind he thinks
I'm
He's just
I'm gonna
going
get
down.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
Which
it's just making it
further
worse.
moves your neuroticism to a higher level,
Yeah.
So
Yes,
is this really
exactly.
helpful? I don't know.
Exactly.
No, you have to look at it. You have to look at it the other way. You have to change this.
I don't know. Can you change it?
Okay, so this
I
is
don't know.
this is where
Yeah.
I come in, right? So so I'm like, oh my goodness, my neuroticism is so high. I need to lower it. But that whole process of worrying about my neuroticism being so high and worrying about getting Alzheimer's is pushing me to other so-called negative emotion, which is making me more neurotic. So the whole cycle of me wanting to be less neurotic is actually making me more neurotic. So how is this helpful?
So the question then is, does that just mean I need therapy? Like,
I believe
is that what I'm supposed to do?
I
Someone
mean,
please tell me what to do is my point. You see, I feel like these scientists these researchers that came up with this study, they were just like, yeah, just drop this bomb. Here you go, neurotic
Deal
people.
with it yourself
Like,
after you take the person.
yeah, please go and solve the issue yourself.
okay, my problem is my conscientiousness is high, right? And conscientiousness is linked to your self-discipline to pursue your goals. And my
Apparently,
goal
yes.
now in this closed state, like context, is I want to be less neurotic. But
Neurotic.
clearly I'm not conscientious enough to be less neurotic. So what do I do now is my question. But anyway.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, how do you actually benefit from this study? Because they didn't really tell us how we can go about tipping the scales.
Be less neurotic.
How?
And more
How? It's
conscientious.
I feel like this conversation is making me more neurotic.
Exactly.
Okay, so the thing about it is, so I was looking up studies on using this Big Five as a model as well. And so, in general, for personality tests, a lot of it is based on self-reporting. So that means you won't exactly learn anything about yourself that you don't already know, if that makes sense. So how accurate it is also dependent on how honest you are. And it should only be used as a comparative tool. So it tells me how introverted I am compared to the average. It doesn't mean that you are necessarily a certain label. Yeah.
Yes.
So lastly, the thing about this Big Five factors score is also most studies correlate certain outcomes with certain
Personality traits.
personalities. Yeah, so in this case, there are some examples that include conscientiousness. So if you're more conscientious, there is a correlation with longer life. And also if you are extroverted, there's also a higher correlation to higher sales for people in sales. So the thing about it
This is
is,
specific.
however, correlation is not causation, so this all could just be incidental. So it really depends on the study design. Where I feel like this doesn't help me is because this study for the Alzheimer's one was longitudinal, which is one of the more
Reliable
reliable methods
data
of
sets.
research.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're following a certain individual before they develop a certain disease, and then when they develop it, then you observe the results.
Yeah, but you don't do anything, so there's usually no
exactly.
intervention. You are just observing them.
observing.
But
Which
do
is
they
why
know?
longitudinal studies. Yeah.
Yes.
They know
They
their
have to.
result.
I guess they would know, or maybe they won't because technically they would have Alzheimer's by that point.
Yeah.
No, but the paper is the hallmarks. It's not they develop
yes, the
Alzheimer's.
hallmarks.
They
Right,
have
right, right,
higher amyloid and tau protein. So actually, they might not have Alzheimer's yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
The risk of developing
The
is
risk
higher.
of developing is there.
Oh.
Yes. So, yeah.
Okay.
Basically, it's like, personality test might be legit, and there are studies that, correlate certain personalities to certain outcomes, but that doesn't necessarily mean it would happen. It's just dependent on the research study. I'm just trying to make myself feel better.
That you won't get Alzheimer's even though you have high neuroticism and low conscientiousness.
It's so high.
Oh man. You are right in the ballpark of the high risk group.
Yeah, exactly. So, is it time to hold myself more accountable for being
Do
a
you think
negative
it
person?
will work? Is my question.
I don't know. I don't think I'm a negative
You're not okay. So
person.
neuroticism is not being a negative person. Okay,
Yeah,
I feel.
being prone,
Negative
being
emotions.
prone. Yes. So in conclusion, if you're a highly conscientious person and you have low neuroticism, apparently your risk of developing hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease, or the umbrella term being dementia, is a lot lower compared to people like me who are not very conscientious but highly neurotic. So this episode we decided to focus a bit more on the personality part because I feel like that's the part that resonated with me the most, and I just influenced everything. But,
Yes.
Wait, Dorothy, what's
you-
your agreeableness? I'm so curious now.
oh yeah,
I'm
that's
everything
true.
around 50. My agreeable 60%.
Oh,
Oh, so
Okay.
quite agreeable.
Not
I feel like I'm a very agreeable person, but then this thing tells me that I'm very competitive, and I'm like, excuse you. Anyway,
you
so
know I
that,
did the short,
don't think
the
you're
short Big Five
agreeable.
test.
really,
You're agreeable to like, okay, let's go eat lunch.
Uh-huh.
If I ask you to do your experiment in a different way.
Why?
I don't know. Just
what's wrong with the way I'm
would-
doing?
Do you see? You are agreeable to the things that you agree with.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
But you have opinions.
Okay, that's fair. Anyway, so Alzheimer's and dementia in general is like a big enough topic for discussion by itself. And in fact, we have a friend who is doing research on dementia. If she listens to this podcast, hopefully she is getting a heads up that we might approach her soon.
Yes, because we clearly steered away from the science of Alzheimer's and dementia because we are not experts and we don't want to butcher it. So
Yeah, just
it's
like
up to our friend.
just before this podcast, I asked Dao and Amanda what's dementia, what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's, and then they explained to me like they know everything, and then they said actually 2 days ago they asked each other this question. So that's how.
Exactly. As usual, follow us on Spotify and subscribe to our YouTube channel. A like and a comment would really help us out.
You can also follow us on our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Feel free to DM us any questions.
Alternatively, you can email us at thelabdoctors@gmail.com. We'll link the Science Daily article in the episode description so you can check it out if you're interested. And please share it with your friends and family. I mean, this episode.
And you can do the
Oh my God,
personality
such a
test.
hot mess.
Oh yeah, you can find out whether or not you're prone to Alzheimer's. Let us know, I guess.
But don't be a Zhao Yong and take it too seriously. Like,
Excuse you.
don't make it affect your life. Don't go down
Clearly,
the
I'm
hole.
not agreeable.
Okay, yeah, so you can find the links for the personality test that we took in the episode description as well. This link actually has all the different personality tests and it's free, so go check it out if you're interested.
Bye.
Bye.